Hey guys, it's Kazureka Cats and Camera, and today I'm doing my July wrap up. So in July I did my library TBR, and of course it was the reading rush, and I ended up reading 11 things. So first up I read Deadpool Back in Black. This was one of the library picks. If you want to find out why I chose the specific things in the library picks, then check that video out, I guess. And yeah, this definitely wasn't my favourite Deadpool comic that I've ever read. It was alright, it was kind of fun. It's basically Deadpool and the alien symbiote that turns into Venom pairing up. Here's the sort of artwork we have in here, and yeah, it was alright, it was kind of fun, but definitely not the best Deadpool that I've ever read. Next up I read A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. This is my own book, and I'm just glad that I finally finished the series. It was great, I love this series. I love all the characters, loads of fun stuff happens. It's the third book in a series, I can't really say what happens, can I? But yeah, glad I finally read it. I do feel like there was a little bit of mystery at the end, that certain things could have not happened, not destroyed. It's open, slightly. And I think that's kind of cool and creepy, and it's just like, okay, I see what you're doing. But yeah, that makes no sense if you haven't read this series, but if you have, then maybe you know what I mean. It's a fantasy, it's about different Londons with different amount of magical power in it. It's about pirates and cool elemental magic and evil stuff and good stuff and family, and yes. Next up is another one of the library picks, and that is Farewell Summer by Ray Bradbury. I'd never heard of this book, and apparently it is the sequel to Dandelion Wine, which is some sort of classic. I don't know what it is. Apparently this came out like 50 years after that book. I quite enjoyed it. I've never read this Dandelion Wine, so I don't know if this would be better if you have read that, or if it doesn't really matter. But yeah, this was about this group of kids that have like a civil war with the older people, but then it's not really like that. That's just what it says on the back, but it is about old generation and young kids and life and what it means. And yeah, I quite enjoyed it. Next up I read The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. This was chosen by R. Jensen for me to read, and I'm so glad that R got me to read this because I never would have picked it up on my own. It's about the Iliad, but it's told from Briasus and the women of this story and how they're treated and just used as slaves and sexual beings during this war with Achilles and Troy and all that business. I wouldn't have picked this up if it had not been for R to tell me to do this, and I'm glad I did. I did really enjoy this book. It's interesting to see different stories told from different perspectives. Even though I've never read the Iliad, I have obviously read the Song of Achilles, so I know the story, and yeah, it's good to see it from somebody else's point of view. All these wars about good guys and bad guys, and then you get the people in the middle that are just fucked either way. Next up I read Illuminae by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I read this on my Kindle, which is not the best idea, just throwing it out there. If you want to read this book, don't read it on the Kindle, because it's told in a lot of different ways, as I'm sure all of you know. It's told in all these different bits and bobs, and on the Kindle the way it's set out is really bad. So when there's pages where it's just a picture or a black thing, it's about 1/3 the size of the page rather than the full page, so it's really hard to read. But having said that, I did enjoy this book. I actually went into it never really interested in reading this series. I've heard about it a lot, but then I got it for free on the Kindle because I had some credits left and it was one of the books I'd heard of, so I thought I might as well get it even though I'm not really interested. But I did enjoy it. I liked the different format, it was quite fun, and it went a different way than I thought. This was a buddy read with Simone. We've done 3 now, I think, and both of us enjoyed it, so that's always a bonus. We've enjoyed all of the books that we've read together. And I just want to throw it out there that I really like the bullet journal spread that I made for this, so I'm just going to show you it. This is my Illuminae spread, and then all of the little words in here are like the reviewy bit, just randomly written here and up here. This says Illuminae in binary code. I googled it, and I just had a lot of fun making this, so I just thought I'd show you it. I like doing bullet journal spreads when I have a buddy read, so that's always fun. Next up I reread Sweet Tooth Volume 1 Out of the Woods by Jeff Lemire because I have Volume 2 and 3 on my list of things to read in 2019, so I wanted to just refresh my memory, and I really enjoy this series. It's really easy to read, there's a lot of pictures and not many words, so it being a reread and me knowing the pictures as well, it literally took like 20 minutes to read. Here's an example of the artwork, and it's just about in the future something happens and then some kids can be born with weird animal bits attached to them. And then there are other people that are hunting them because they're quite rare. Kind of harsh. Next up I read Warcross by Marie Lu. I had to give this back to the library, and with this one I really enjoyed the concept of it. I enjoyed the whole gaming aspect. You go into this world, it's just very real life. Even though it's kind of sci-fi, it's kind of only just sci-fi because it's definitely going to happen in real life. There are already games where people can go into it, virtual reality exists. You know, a lot of money can be made from games. I mean, literally the other week it was the Fortnite World Cup and many people won millions and millions of dollars that were like 15, 16 years old. So it's very much happening in real life, or is going to happen soon. What I didn't necessarily enjoy from this is, first of all, it said she let out a breath that she didn't realise she was holding at least twice, maybe even 3 times. And I was like, really? When did this book come out? Why does that even exist anymore? Every author knows it's a terrible line, so why is it still being used multiple times in one book that is modern? But more importantly than that, I thought some of the twists were quite obvious where they were going to go, and I wasn't a massive fan of the romance. I know it kind of had its purpose in the book, so certain characters could open up to other certain characters, and then you got some of their backstory, and then there was some reason for that. But I just wasn't a massive fan of the romance because it felt really forced and really unlikely. They barely really talked to each other or had anything in common, and then all of a sudden they both really liked each other, and I was like, eh. I can understand one of them because they've liked this person because they're a celebrity for ages, but the other way around it's like, oh, I saw you in a dress once and now I'm in love with you. Really? And the person that was the baddie was kind of obvious who it was going to be. But that being said, I will potentially read the next book because I did enjoy the whole gaming aspect. Like I said, I thought it was interesting. It was just a little bit too painting by numbers YA for me. Next up, I beta read my sister's new book, The Carnelian Fox by Kay MacLeod. It's not out yet. I can't even put a picture here because it doesn't exist. Maybe I'll just hold her other books. I'm just going to do this while I talk about it. But yeah, this was awesome. It's not a part of this series, it's a new series that she's starting. This is carrying on. She's doing book 3 of the Constellation series, but this other book that's coming out first is a new series and it's awesome. And if you like Pokemon or Digimon or any sort of monster catching games, you will love this book. It's great. It's basically set in this world where this gaming company created Mayamon in real life, and then just as probably would happen in real life, people got bored of the game eventually, and because these creatures actually existed, they just went out into the wild and procreated, and you know, they've all got crazy powers. So there's people that go around trying to stop these Mayamon from causing destruction, and it's a really cool series. Well, it will be a cool series. It's a very cool first book. There's loads of cool twists, there's great characters. Obviously I'll tell you more about it when it gets closer to release date because it doesn't even have a cover yet, but it's really great and you should keep an eye out. And also pick up these before, because next up I read The Sandman Volume 1, Preludes and Nocturnes. This one was really interesting. I've had it for quite a while and I finally picked it up for the reading rush. Yeah, it's really weird and fun. It's about people capturing the Sandman, the guy that creates dreams and makes dreams real, and then all these weird and wonderful storylines happen. It's quite an old series, so it's not my favourite sort of art style. I like more modern art, but as I was reading it I did enjoy it. This is more like a selection of stories. They do follow on from each other, but they're very much contained. In one of them with me is Sister Death, and he's going around with her, seeing her do a thing. And another one, he's in hell and he's talking to Lucifer, and that's where the Lucifer comics became a thing after this, I'm pretty sure. And then the TV show, which I'm a big fan of. This is actually the first Neil Gaiman thing, I said thing instead of book, that I've ever read, so that's always fun. I know a lot of people love Neil Gaiman, so I finally eventually ventured into the mind of Neil Gaiman. Next up I read The Uncanny X-Men Executions, book 1. This one, it was alright. I wasn't a massive fan of it. All of the different volumes in this trade paperback just felt really eclectic, like they didn't properly fit together, and it felt a little bit like you jumped over here, you jumped over here. The storyline wasn't there for me. Also, again, this old school sort of style of art is not my favourite. But yeah, it just felt a bit all over the place. That could potentially be due to the fact that this is the first X-Men comic I've ever read. I've seen the cartoon as a kid, I've seen the films, so I know most of the characters, but I've never read one before, so that may have something to do with it, but I felt like I knew most of the characters. It's just the way it was written wasn't the best. And last but certainly not least, I read Tyler Johnson Was Here by J. Coles. This one I really enjoyed. It made me cry, of course, you know what I'm like with crying. This one, I went in with it not really knowing much about it. I knew it was something to do with the Black Lives Matter movement. Something happened to a guy's brother, but I didn't know what or any of the surrounding whys and whens and hows. And I'm glad I went into it like that. I didn't know what was going to happen, so I don't really want to say too much here because I feel like it will ruin it. Not necessarily ruin it, but I feel like you'll get too much information if I tell you the basic plot line. But yeah, we're following Marvin in this, and something happens to his twin Tyler, and it's all about the aftermath of that and the shock and the annoyance and anger and upset and sadness and power and everything to do with that. His friends, his family, the community, and yeah, I don't want to say too much about it, but I very much enjoyed it. And I also know that this is somehow related to something that happened to J. Coles in real life. I'm not sure how exactly his real life experience meets with this, because obviously it's not non-fiction or anything, so I don't know if it's something different, but that makes it more authentic. It's definitely a hard book to read in places because we do get some racist points of view and some very unnecessary, not that it's ever necessary, brutality from police to young black people for no reason, and it really irritates me to read that. And I think it doesn't hit me as much as how hard it is in real life because I'm from England. I'm sure it definitely happens over here, but I feel like it's not as prevalent over here than it is in America at how police treat people of colour. So I feel like when I'm not reading about it, it doesn't really hit me at how ongoing and often and incessant it is. So it gets me really riled up when I read it, but it was a great book nonetheless, if you can read about that sort of stuff. So yeah, there we go. Those are all the books that I read in July. I didn't dislike any of them. There were some that were a bit meh, but overall it was a pretty decent month. So let me know down below what you read in July, or if you've read any of these, let me know what your thoughts were. If this is your first video by me you enjoy it, then please check out some of my others, and if you continue to enjoy them, please subscribe, that'd be awesome. Anyway guys, I'll see you in a few days with another video. Bye.